Since the end of World War II, the American dream has promised safety and prosperity, and suburbia was the physical manifestation of that. Nuclear families bought detached homes with manicured lawns and lived a life of comforting illusion that danger existed somewhere else. Poltergeist begins by completely embracing this fantasy. The Freelings are not a dysfunctional or broken family. They are loving, casual, and deeply relatable. And that's what makes Poltergeist so frightening, because this movie doesn't punish a bad family. It invades and terrorizes a good family. When horror arrives at the Freeling house, it's not because they deserve it. The horror comes because the system that they bought into is corrupt. Their new house in Cuesta Verde is a mass-produced, interchangeable, and financed through corporate development. It represents American upward mobility, not history. And that's the first crack in this dream, because this dream has no roots. And right in the very beginning of the film, we see that this house is a bit different. Even though in many ways it is a typical American dream house of the suburbs, there are some things about it that are just off. For example, the staircase that goes down into the middle of the living room has kind of a strange curved shape to it. I don't think I've seen a staircase that looks quite like this one. Then there's this big scary tree in the backyard. This tree looks like it's seen some shit. And I gotta mention this creepy clown doll. Who in their right mind would buy a life-size clown doll that looks like this for their kids? Then of course there's the television set. When the TV goes to static, it hypnotizes the Freeling's youngest daughter, Carol Ann. And a big TV is one of the hallmarks of American consumerism. When a TV is on, it can feel comforting and numbing in a way. But in Poltergeist, the television becomes a portal, blurring the lines between fantasy and reality. The most shocking reveal in Poltergeist is when the real estate developer explains that their home was built on top of a cemetery, and only the headstones were removed, so the bodies are still underneath the house. So the Freelings' American dream required that the house displaced people, forgetting and erasing the dead that were buried there. And this erasing of history is exactly what makes the spirits angry. Sometimes what looks like progress can start screaming back at you from the grave. And this is why the true villains of Poltergeist aren't the angry ghosts. It's the real estate developers who built Cuesta Verde, because they represent the darker side of the American dream, which is success without accountability. The message is crystal clear. When profit is put at the highest value, that's when ethics become optional. That's why many of the comforts that Americans take for granted lash out inside the Freeling house. That creepy clown doll attacks the children. Dead bodies rise up from their graves and into their swimming pool. And Carol Ann is transported to another dimension through her closet, only to end up communicating through the static in the television set. And it's too bad for the Freelings, because really they do everything right. They work hard and buy a nice home, raise a nice family, follow all the rules, and yet their environment still collapses in on them, and they are left all alone to face consequences that they didn't create. The parents in Poltergeist are present, emotionally engaged, and very loving. That's kind of unusual for a horror film, because the horror isn't caused by generational neglect or family issues. Instead, it's the system that caused their nightmare. The ending scene of Poltergeist is very important, because when they push that TV out of their motel room, that is a rejection of the illusion of the American dream. Instead of the movie ending with showing them in a nice new house in the suburbs, it shows the Freelings completely abandoning that dream. And I think that's why Poltergeist still holds up today, because over 40 years later, we see these problems in real life. Housing developers do erase history at the expense of older communities. Profits are still prioritized over the people. And media still hypnotizes Americans. And the American dream makes big promises, just so long as we can ignore what lies beneath the surface. In Poltergeist, that American dream was rotten to the foundation. The American dream depends on the idea that land is neutral, that it's just ownable dirt, completely devoid of meaning and history. But in Poltergeist, the land itself remembers. The decision of the developers to build over a cemetery without moving the bodies isn't just immoral. It's symbolic of a larger American problem. America has a long history of indigenous displacement, slavery, unmarked graves, exploitative labor erased from public memory, and lots of environmental destruction beneath those developments. That's an accusation not just at the developer, but at the American culture itself, because those headstones are just performative morality, but the bodies beneath them are the truth. And the ghosts lash out because the truth was buried, and truth always has a way of coming to the surface. And all the authority figures completely fail in Poltergeist. Scientists measure the activity but not the meaning. The police arrive way too late. The developers lie, of course, and the insurance companies disappear. And this suggests something really scary. There is no higher authority capable of fixing a corrupted system. The American dream promises that these institutions will protect you if you participate correctly, and Poltergeist annihilates that belief. In the end, the Freeling family survives not because the system saves them, but because they completely abandon it. In Poltergeist, the dad is seen reading a book about Ronald Reagan. And that's not an accident, because the Reagan era was defined by deregulation, real estate booms, and the loosening of corporate restrictions. But the movie contradicts that narrative. It suggests that economic growth without ethical reckoning invites catastrophe. Poltergeist suggests something very unsettling. The American dream doesn't protect a family against horror. In fact, it seems to cause it. And the only way they save themselves is by abandoning the dream altogether.